So, I hate to say it because I hate doing too many interviews and talky videos, but I'm out of the G20. I was only able to really do like one video about what was actually going on. I was able to do another video with an interview about some of the circumstances with the journalist, so I can appreciate at least doing that. And what I do want to say is one of the important things about the videos I make and the channel, the style of content I'm trying to produce, is that I am trying to make it a bit more experiential about who I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going during the news, and that includes if I'm forced to flee news coverage because of these threats. So, I've come to London. There's some stories that are going to be happening in the United Kingdom in the next couple days that I'm not going to get too much into for security reasons, but interestingly enough, this idea of, everyone's a Nazi, everyone's a white supremacist, and they call it snitch jacketing, and then when they accuse you of being a cop, I've only, in the past few months, have been really entrenched in this hard progressive versus, anti-SJW, whatever you would call it. But there's someone who has more experience than I do, Mr. Sargon of Akkad, who just happened to have been in London as well.
I am, yeah.
So I thought, what's interesting is what we could talk about real quick is this idea of harassment, because I've been exploring this on social media. I see a lot of these feminists online talk about how they're harassed all the time. And it got me thinking, not only have I been harassed, but just the other day, my friends were beaten in the streets, harassed, and we were forced to flee news coverage because the harassment wasn't, we weren't getting inundated with threats online and insults and tweets. We were watching people share information amongst themselves, saying, go get them, go beat them, and then sure enough, that's what it came to.
Were they tweeting out your location?
Following
you around, tweeting out your location.
They tweeted that they were like, the fascists who were with that woman are sitting at a cafe near the fish market. And then for Lauren, they were tweeting out a timestamp and a location she was spotted. And I think what's really crazy about that is there weren't protesters around Lauren. She was, all of us were standing at like a little fish and chips shop. It was like a little, little pub kind of thing. Some of the people there tweeted out her sent her information to Antifa, to these Antifa-aligned people. It's like a snitch on your neighbor thing. It's just the craziest thing, not knowing who's trying to get you hurt, who's spying on you,
It's pretty terrifying. I mean, you've been declared to be a wrong thinker. There's no judge, jury, there's no trial. You won't be asked, is this information accurate? You will be tracked around, you will be attacked, you will be forcibly removed because you're a danger because you're filming.
So you've been talking about issues like this for years now. Has there been something you've seen where, this instance of this guy Max, he's a German reporter, he was freelancing for a left-wing outlet, and simply because we happened to be walking past him, we saw him, we were like, oh hey, I've seen that guy once before. In the photo you can see Lauren Southern behind him. They beat him up too, and I think that's the craziest thing to me, but has there been anything similar to that? Like, have you seen anything like that before online, or just...
Well, I mean, you can't. I don't really think there's an online analogy for that. I mean, that's honestly that's something that genuinely worries me. That these people will literally recognise and target and physically harass journalists. I mean, I don't see that. If you've got to harass journalists, then you probably don't have a legitimate political cause.
Well, let's say this: these guys think they're fighting Nazis, right? They haven't researched any of these people.
Yeah.
They haven't looked up me, or they don't know who Max is. I know for a fact they don't know who Max is because Max doesn't have an online following.
Yeah.
He's just a local reporter. I only learned his name after he got beat up. But they accuse him of being part of our group and things like that. It's just not true. So I guess the issue is, is there an equivalent to what you've seen in this politics and social justice of people who don't do research and just target people and attack them?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm in London is because yesterday I was doing an interview with Majid Nawaz, and we're going to a bit of a meet-up today just to have a few beers. And it was the strangest reaction to this interview, because I had spent a long time preparing, I spent a long time reading into the ideology of Islamism and jihadism, so I could have an informed conversation with him and actually ask him about pertinent issues, try and bring out some real information from someone who was in it firsthand. I mean, he was an Islamist. He spent 5 years in the Egyptian prison.
I actually got to interview him. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and so I thought, right, okay, this is some great information, because I think there is definitely a lack of understanding of the ideological positions of Sufi Muslims, jihadis and Islamists and all that. So I thought, okay, great, we can actually have a good hour-long conversation and get some real information out that people can actually use, so they can inform their worldview better. When the interview went out, it was the most bizarre thing, because on both sides, it was just nothing but character assassination. The metaphorical daggers came out, and it was, I mean hundreds and hundreds of posts on the video, comments on the video from accounts I don't recognize. I mean, I read all my comments, so I recognize a lot of the commenters who post regularly, and that's fine. But a lot of people came out of the woodwork who I didn't even know. And they were like, I don't trust Majid. I don't trust him. I think he's, secret Islamist and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, so he spends his time de-radicalizing people. Why do you think he's a secret Islamist? And then conversely, on his Twitter feed, I was looking through the comments like, Sargon is this, Sargon is that, Sargon is that. I'm like, Jesus Christ. No one was interested in the content. No, and it was none of it was well informed either, as far as I could tell.
It's you know what I think it is, like, my friend told me you're a Nazi, so you are. My friend told me you're an Islamist, so you are. Yeah. Sargon's a alt-right, whatever. Yeah. It's true. Like, they don't care to listen to what you have to say.
No. And none of these people have watched any of my content. That's absolutely certain.
Okay. That's the thing. Okay, I've had people post. They're like, Tim, you share conspiracy theories. Like you're peddling conspiracy theories, and they send me a screenshot of my video. Kim.com speaks out Seth Rich conspiracy, in which the video I say Kim.com likely will only put out a statement. There's not a lot of evidence here, and you guys need to walk this back a little bit. If they watched the video, they'd be like, hey, Tim's trying to calm people down and move them away from irrationality. But they take the titles of my videos and then say, like, simply for talking about a concept, it makes you right wing or something.
It's all guilt by association, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're using. Lauren Southern took a selfie with me. We did an interview. I interviewed her about whether she's an activist or a journalist, because she's a right wing activist, journalist, whatever you want to call it. She took a selfie. Now that's proof that, like, I'm an identitarian, and I'm simply for her being like, I was interviewed by Tim Pool, and she made a joke about me being Hispanic.
So you've joined the clan, okay?
No, but that's just it.
That's the point. I mean, literally, these people are simply saying things like, you shouldn't let Sargon interview you because then you're being associated with them. It's like, I mean, and things. I got exactly this when I did an interview for The Sun the other day. Imars Chung has started working for The Sun, and so I know Ian, and I'm very friendly with him. And he was like, look, I've been asked to cover this. What happened to you at VidCon? And there are flies in here. It's really frustrating. But yeah, and so obviously in his article he put disclosure. I know Sargon, and we've like played a video game together, and we consider ourselves friends. So just be aware. So it's all above board. And then some guy came at me on Twitter accusing me of having taken money from The Sun, and I was just like, I didn't realize they'd pay.
But this is what they did to me with the. Here's the funny thing with the Sweden thing, and Paul Joseph Watson. Okay, Paul Joseph Watson challenged a liberal journalist to go to Sweden. Hundreds of journalists said, me, give me the money. I was one of those liberal journalists, and Paul, who I don't know, I've never spoken to or met, but there's I believe. In all honesty, there's intermediaries between Paul and I where Paul's more likely to trust, like, okay, Tim knows these people, so maybe I can trust him. So he was like, I'll do a donation. Paul as an individual donated about 9.7% of the total fundraiser that I did. The largest single contributor being a Swedish person, and something like 60 to 70% being Swedish donations. And now they're saying Tim Pool works for InfoWars. That's like literally where they've gone from Paul Joseph Watson challenged me, a liberal, like someone he disagrees with, and you know what I've done? Like, I did a live stream just before that happened where I criticized Paul Joseph Watson for being wrong. And look, I don't think
isn't a crime.
But I don't think he's wrong all the time. I think he, like most pundits, has good points, and I think he's got some uninformed opinions, and he's made some mistakes. And so I called him out saying that, one of the challenges with pundits like him, like Rachel Maddow, or like other people on the right, left, Lauren Duca, is that they get people so fervent that when they make mistakes, they don't realize it creates problems.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is owning your mistakes. Own and correct. That's what you've got to do. This whole thing, like, it's very interesting because what the thing I found most fascinating is that as soon as I pointed out to this chap, look, I haven't taken any money from this, and the sort of personal relationship I have with the journalist who was interviewing me was fully disclosed in the article. So there's really nothing to complain about here. I can't see if there is any malfeasance here. I would be more than happy to correct it. But that didn't matter, because as soon as I pointed this out, he's like, well, you're still associating yourself with the Sun. And it's like, no, you're not associating yourself with someone by being interviewed.
That's what's great. I've been on MSNBC before, I've been on Fox News, and I've had people be like, why is Tim doing interviews with Fox News?
Because you interview people.
They asked.
Yeah, exactly. You just interview people, even if you don't agree with them. It's fine. I mean, I debated, well, I didn't debate, I kind of interviewed, he's a white identitarian and white nationalist, that Millennial Rose. That doesn't mean I'm a white nationalist, or I agree with any of his, all I did is argue against his philosophical positions the whole time. You know, and by the end of it, I mean, we'd started from a position of, look, there isn't a white genocide going on. And then, got into the whole, the needlessness of identity politics, and how he's a mirror image of the social justice warriors. He's legitimizing what they say by doing what he's doing, and I didn't persuade him, unfortunately. I hope I persuaded the audience, but that doesn't, I mean, the very fact that I talk to him means that I can try and rebut some of his points. If I don't do that, I can't do it.
It's about intellectual honesty, I guess. Yeah. It's there's that comic that came out that tries to paint the VidCon situation as you and the crowd were yelling at her, at Anita, which is not true.
The opposite.
And so, as much as I've said, yeah, you guys were aware there would be tension by being there.
Yeah.
But the only way that we end this fighting is when people come face to face with each other. I have seen bitter enemies sit down in front of each other, and all of a sudden they can't look each other in the eyes, and they're like, it's like you see two dogs and there's a fence and they're barking at each other. You pull the fence away and they just back away.
Yeah,
That's exactly. So it's disappointing to me then when you guys show up. Yeah, there's like snark and there's like the guys are laughing and stuff, but there was an opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, like at VidCon, we genuinely wanted to talk, and that's the thing. All they can do is no platforms, and I think that it's this kind of like increasing balkanization. They want everything to be not only separate but under their control. And if for example, I mean, like, I don't know why people thought I'd have a lot to disagree with Majid. I didn't. I mean, he seems to be a liberal. Lockean liberal. So I don't see ideologically what we conflict on. I mean, we could talk about whether God exists, and then he'd be talking articles of faith. I'd be talking how I don't have faith. But that's it's not like we're deeply divided in principle. And even if we were, so what? What's wrong with us just talking?
Let's bring this back to the G20, because there's something I find interesting is that there's kind of there's almost two different groups here, right? Antifa is not necessarily the SJWs, but there's an overlap. You know what I mean? Where they take some of the same beliefs.
And there are members of Antifa, or the sort of the people who would call themselves real socialists, who very much dislike identity politics.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I met up with one yesterday. He's actually, I disagree with him philosophically and ideologically, but there are still points that we can agree on, and the idea of discriminating against men and women on the basis of men and women, or black and white, or whatever, he's against that, And so that puts us in common cause against the identitarians, because he's actually not an identitarian.
Well, it's interesting is that technically the SJWs are identitarians, just like the white nationalists.
Absolutely.
But
they're completely identitarians. That's the fundamental basis of their philosophy is.
Oh, they had a heart attack. We're good.
That's all right. The fundamental basis of their philosophy is there is an identity, a dichotomy between two identities. One identity is oppressing the other identity.
Yeah.
If that's not true, they don't have an argument at all.
But that's literally what the G20 is.
Sorry, go on.
That's the G20. It's the protesters blaming.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant the G20 meeting.
No. They're blaming the G20 for being the oppressors.
Yeah. And it's like it's 20 different countries, all with remarkably different situations, who have come together for a conference.
Yeah.
I mean, you can criticize them on being okay. Well, this is probably some sort of neoliberal organization that's going to further increase wealth disparity and stuff like this. That would be a legitimate criticism, I'm sure. I haven't actually looked into what happened with G20 on the political level.
Yeah. Well, I was forced to leave, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would have been nice for you to know, wouldn't it? But yeah, just to blanket say, look, it's those people. They're against us. That's what they want. It's this kind of culture warrior mentality.
So I guess here's the final thought that kind of wraps all of this together. It's if you're like a Bernie Sanders Occupy, the 1% is the problem. If you're a white nationalist, the Jewish people are the problem. if you're an SJW, patriarchy, or white people,
Yeah.
it's like everybody's got a villain,
Yeah.
and you can almost entirely, not completely, but interchange these words, these oppressors with each other, and every group has identified someone.
It's the same principle, you know, and this is why one of the most common sort of way of roasting these ideologies online is just getting a browser extension that changes a certain word on the page, and you can go to like almost any Guardian article and just change the word white for black, and it's okay, or white for Jews and stuff like that, and then you've got a white national, then you've got something that came off the Daily Stormer.
So I guess final question is, you know, we're seeing what is reported as being one of the largest black blocs in history in Hamburg.
Yeah.
Is this
scary, isn't it?
is this escalating more? Like it seems to be every time I look at it.
If we've suddenly, I mean, I saw the videos. I mean, it looked like thousands of them.
It was, yeah.
Thousands
Torching
of
cars
yeah.
and
marching through the streets
Yes,
with
and
impunity, you know. And it's like, right, okay. I mean, how can they do this with impunity? You know, why? The police should have broken that up.
well, the police apparently there weren't enough, and they're trying to call in more. So that's why I'm wondering, like, are we truly seeing this dramatic escalation
Well,
where the police are losing control and?
What you think they'll have to deploy the army?
Well, I don't know. I know in the U.S. they can't. The army
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
But the National Guard has come out for helping to secure things. I don't know. You know, we've seen escalation in the U.S. and it seems like every time we hear about another protest, there's an escalation.
I find the US an interesting case because after the Battle of Berkeley, it seems that the Antifa groups in the US have been a bit more shy after getting their asses handed to them by the Proud Boys. But, which I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed watching that. But, and I don't even agree with necessarily their ideological positions. But someone had to put these people in their place, and clearly that's not happening in Germany. I mean, to have like the largest black bloc in history come out yesterday, how can you say it's not escalating? It looks like it's escalating. You know, I mean, and the thing is, you look around and everything's like, okay, everything's quiet and everything's normal. It's like, yeah, it is right now, you know, but tomorrow...
It's like a powder keg.
Exactly, it's a powder keg. Just because they're not happening right this second doesn't mean that tomorrow you won't have thousands of them marching through the streets, smashing in shop windows, burning cars, and beating people up. You know, it can't go on. It's got to be stopped.
But it just keeps happening.
Yeah, but it's got to stop. Someone's got to do something. You know, the authorities, like, we don't have the police presence. Well, get the police presence. It's your job to maintain order. These people are breaking the law. They're smashing and vandalizing.
I guess I'll put it this way. Unfortunately, it sounds like they're winning.
Well, obviously that just emboldens them as well.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine they were celebrating. Largest black bloc in history. Smashed everything up.
Reportedly.
But I mean, it probably is. I can't.
Looked like it, yeah.
I honestly can't think of a time when there would have been more people than that. And it's just going to embolden them. It's going to draw more people in who think, well, actually, I was thinking, you know, people on the margins who are like, well, it does look kind of fun, but I'm not going to get involved because I don't want to get my head clubbed or something.
Yep.
And then they realise, well, actually, no one's going to stop us. You know?
I think that's exactly it. No one calls them out.
Yeah.
No one stops them. We see left-leaning outlets praise
Apologizing.
it. They ignore the egregious crimes.
Mm-hmm.
They ignore the fact that most of these people were attacking the working class, poor people, and then we don't see any of this behavior called out. I want to stress because people are, you know, I say this all the time, but people are like, Tim, you're so objective and unbiased. I'm like, no. I'm just opposed to extremism. Yeah. I believe in trying to be as honest as possible. And it means I get things wrong, but if there's a group of fascists, if there's a group of anti-fascists, and they're both going around attacking people, I'll call out the violence.
It's essential for the order of society. You know, the legitimacy of the institutions we operate under rests on the fact that they maintain order and that they protect and serve the people who are living under them. If they don't, then they end up losing legitimacy. And the more legitimacy they lose, the more legitimacy groups like Antifa end up gaining.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone might think, well, it's a small fry now. Yeah, now we've just seen the largest black bloc in history. What are we going to see next year? You know.
Well, I wonder if I'll be there covering it.
I don't know. Who else is going to do it?
Yeah, but if they're targeting me and beating up my friends, it's getting to that point. So, you know.
Yeah, we got to wear a disguise.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, man. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking again. For those that are hanging out and watching, thank you all so much. Gonna go to the next big story, but I'll be hanging out in London for a few days, so if you like the video, click the like button, comment below, let me know what you think. If you want to help support the work that I do, go to patreon.com/Timcast. Give whatever you can, give nothing at all. My videos will always be free and available every day at 4 p.m. Again, I'm on Twitter @Timcast, and I will see you all tomorrow.